Join us as career changers, company leaders, industry experts, and others who have been in your shoes share their stories, insights, and lessons learned to help you find enjoyment through employment in the tech world. I'm Nemo Ashong, and this is the Empjoyment Podcast. Woo-wee, Empjoyees. I cannot believe that I have the pleasure once again to say hello. And I'm going to say it. Hello. Nemo Ashong here, and this is going to be an amazing episode. Why? Because we have my good friend Alaric Eby on the show, and Alaric is a product manager that actually works for a large financial institution. Like, if you're in America, you've likely heard of it. You've seen their commercials. They've been around for decades and decades, if not longer. I'm not sure about their full history, but let's just say that you know it. And this is a really cool conversation because, you know, Alaric is doing technology and working in tech as a product manager within a corporation, you know, and a lot of times I think when we think about this, we're like, oh, maybe I have to start up something completely new and take more risk, and we'll work at a startup with all these, like, with just like a 5-person team or a 25-person team. He's working at a large company that is making things happen, and he's finding ways to help innovate on their digital products and the experience that people get when it comes to payments. Now, I can talk about it a bit here because I just got off the phone with him, but quite frankly, I'll let Alaric do more of that, because what you'll hear is he just talks about it with such a passion that it's clearly something that you all should get. So, I mean, pay attention to, as you're listening to this, pay attention to his journey and how he did it. I think that he has a methodology in terms of how he looks at product management, and he keeps it really, really simple. He says it's really just about 2 things. So make sure to listen out for what those 2 things are. And you can tell that he means it because it's a consistent theme throughout. He also talks a little bit about a builder's mentality, and there's a couple of different games in there. There's definitely a metaphor that I'm going to be keeping in my mind going forward throughout the rest of my life. Alaric also takes the time to like really share with us some of the jumps that he's had in his career. So like he didn't start out in technology, and it's really interesting to see how he's gone from super large companies to smaller organizations, and to continue to leverage that along the way. So he talks through each of those different jumps and how he was able to continue to build skill and leverage it from one place to another, specifically leading him to the role that he has at this time. I think there's something else that was really interesting here that is important to look out for, which is just how he goes around trying to get experience. And he has a very simple method in there that he recommends that employees take. And so I would really like you to take a listen out for that. And with that there, I think I can keep going on. There's a lot of really great things that came up in this conversation. I think the last thing I will point out is the why that he brings up around what excites him right now. So he's going to give you some information about what concretely excites him, but there's also a kind of a philosophy about it, like the reason why he's excited by it. And I think that is, it was the first time that I had heard what his answer being used in the way that it was. Oftentimes there are other more flippant not flippant, I think that's the wrong word, but there are other responses that don't just really give it as much credit as this. So I'll go ahead and stop talking about the episode because I want you all to listen to it. And as you know, we do some good work and continue this work here in the Empjoyment Community. Alaric actually volunteers to come in there and actually lead a workshop by the end of this year. And what I put out is that the people in the Empjoyment Community are the people who are going to steer what that workshop is going to look like. We have a lot of options. It's going to be a hands-on workshop. The goal is for you to be able to add another bullet to your resume as a result of attending it. But if you want to be able to steer the direction of it and let us know what that workshop would be, you need to be a part of the Empjoyment community, because that's my way of knowing who's serious about taking steps or not, right? So if you're interested, you can just go to empjoyment.com/community and follow the steps there to join the community. Or you can you can just type on your phone right now the words Empjoyment to 33444, and then you'll find out about the next steps going forward from there. All right. So without further ado, here is the amazing episode that is going to transform the way that you approach your next job opportunity with Alaric Eby. Why, hello there, and welcome to the Empjoyment podcast, where we're focused on helping people just like you experience enjoyment through employment. I'm Nemo Ashong, and I have the absolute pleasure of being joined here today by Alaric Eby. Alaric graduated Cornell in 2010 with a degree in applied economics and management. Alaric has had deep experience working across companies, both large with 200K plus employees and small with less than 1,000 employees, across a variety of industries, focusing on creating new digital products for a wide population of businesses and consumers. While most of his expertise may commonly be oversimplified as product management, Alaric has extensive firsthand knowledge of the challenges and opportunities which present themselves when driving new initiatives from ideation through launch. Woo! Alaric, this is the way to start off a podcast here. I'm really, really excited to dive into this here, and just excited to get to learn more about your journey and how you've gone through to find your enjoyment through employment. So I've kind of read off a bit here about you from a professional standpoint. Would love to get to know you better from a personal standpoint. Would you mind sharing a little bit about your life, love, work, and passion?
Sure. Thanks, Nemo. And I'm happy to be here and happy to help out. So I'm excited to chat with you today and share whatever I can to help those people who might want a little bit of assistance figuring this stuff out. It gets pretty complicated, so I'm always happy to help. But to sum myself up in one sentence, I would have to say a few things. I'm a pretty huge tech nerd who is also addicted to exercising in any way I possibly can. I love to cook incredibly spicy food and also just try to keep everyone around me laughing with my quirky zaniness. In more words, my buddies, coworkers, and wife probably characterize me as being a bit extreme because I tend to be pretty competitive and won't give up until I learn everything about a certain subject or get really good at something that's really obscure. And I generally just have a bit too much fun pushing myself on every front, whether that's trying to get other people to think out of the side of the box, trying to get my friends to have more fun, or trying to get my wife to spend more time with me and do fun stuff with me. So that's probably me in a box, personally and professionally.
That's awesome. And you just brought up your wife, so I'm just going to put it out there for all the employees that are listening here. Alaric and I go way back, and it's actually Alaric's wife is the one who introduced me to my wife here. So, I think you're getting a special treat here in terms of that kind of combination, that combo here. So shout out there from that perspective. And Alaric, you said that you're really good at like helping people explore new things and about themselves. What is one thing that you've been able to explore more deeply and especially getting to know and try and master more deeply recently?
Sure. One thing I actually tried recently is, as I mentioned, I'm a huge fitness junkie, so I like to do all sorts of things. One thing I've recently gotten into is CrossFit. For years, I have been shaming CrossFit and putting a lot of pressure on why it's bad and why it's dangerous. But I just kind of fell into my lap that I decided to try it this summer. So I've been really dedicating myself to that, figuring it out, noticing that it isn't as bad as many people seem. And just like anything, there's a lot of good apples, even though there might be some bad apples. So I've been getting really into that, really exploring my passion for that this summer. And it just taught me a lot of most primarily how just because you think something's bad or everybody else says it's bad for you or might be dangerous, it's all up to you and how you define your own personal journey with these types of things. So I know that's a really specific example, but as your friends and my friends might know me, that was a pretty big step for me. So that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, It's really congratulations. I'm glad that you're having fun with it, and I'm glad that you stepped yourself out of you took yourself out of the box for yourself. But I also think that what you just said there is like a really good parallel to a lot of where employees are in the broader sense of their careers. Right? There are a lot of times that the people in our lives might be in their best intentions, telling us all the reasons why making a switch from something comfortable for us may not be the right move for us. But at the same time, there's a lot of growth and hopefully a lot of joy that comes along with it. So I think the experience you're having with CrossFit is actually just quite applicable on a grander scheme to some of the challenges and some of the things that people here will face here. So thank you for that, Alaric. And I'll love to start out here just kind of like framing things a little bit for the conversation. And where I like to go with it is to just explore some kind of quote or mantra or some motto that you use to kind of shape your success and guide your success along the way. So would you mind sharing with us a quote that you have found useful throughout your professional journey?
Sure. Happy to. So I personally love quotes. I could probably write a list of all of the quotes I've heard throughout my life. My dad likes quotes. My coaches always like quotes. I just like crazy one-liners. So as it relates to a few that have really driven me throughout my career, I'd probably narrow it down to really two from two different people. One was from, as I mentioned, I've always been an exercise junkie, but I was actually a diver for much of my career, the type of diving where you jump off the diving boards and do the crazy flips and such, not scuba diving. And one coach always told me when I was trying to learn and push myself to do new things is that the only way out is through. And that sounds very kind of generic, but what that really means is that people arrive in situations where they're confused, they might feel stressed, they might feel depressed, and they don't really know where to go, and they try to escape that type of uncomfortable question or problem they need to solve or push it off to later. In my opinion, the only real way to tackle these types of challenges is to do just that, to tackle them head on, to break through it, to sit there and grind out the problem, to have the grit to just get something done. And this you can apply to anywhere in life, whether it's, trying to lose weight or trying to learn a new skill like a language. The only way to learn it is just to simply sit down and learn it. There's no magic bullet and there's no secret pill to get it done. But the other one I'd want to highlight, Nemo, is that do it right the first time. When you're solving these problems, it's really easy to take shortcuts. It's really easy just to rely on what somebody told you or what somebody did, but to continue to ask yourself why. Continue to try and understand things. Continue to try and make the right decision every time with the information you have as you're breaking through these boundaries is just incredibly powerful. Given that I've worked at major financial institutions, it probably comes to no surprise that they may not have the newest, latest, and greatest XD technologies out there. So it often comes up in my day job, oh, well, this system has this limitation and this project can't work because X, Y, Z. The answer is that the project normally can. It's a little bit of front loading the work. When you want to change something and you want to improve a customer experience or create a new value, just taking the time to do it right and ignore those boundaries and break through and maybe do a little bit of extra legwork in the beginning will save you a world of patchwork problems later that you need to solve.
Whoa. I love this. I love both of these here. So the only way out is through and do it right the first time. I think we'll be able to talk a little bit later on about like a challenging moment that you had. So I'll leave that first quote a little bit, but I would love if you can to maybe help us see what like doing it right the first time really looks like. And I think you just brought up a great point about, you're in an environment where, while you may be creating new digital products, like there may not be all that around on a day-to-day basis. And, you just talked about like how you've helped the people around you be able to do that. Maybe you can speak through either a specific time or some of the specific steps that you took to help get people on that board. Because I can see a lot of people trying to build experience in their jobs where they are right now and feeling like they're hitting that wall and not sure how to get through or to do it right the first time. Any thoughts on that?
Sure. So the first way, in my opinion, to truly enable you to, quote, do it right the first time is to constantly ask yourself the question, why and how? What are these roadblocks? What really is at the root of people telling you no? Because people are averse to moving. People are averse to change. They don't want to take the time to do more work, even though we're all getting paid to do work. So finding a way to first understand what the real problem is. It isn't necessarily what everybody thinks. So for example, without going too much into specifics, one thing I regularly face in my day job is, oh, well, that system hasn't been touched in 20 years and nobody's allowed to build anything in that platform or touch that particular system. Well, I understand it's a financial services company and we can't necessarily be uprooting and changing all of the core things to make everybody's money safe and secure. But one thing that we wanted to do involved core changes to that particular platform. And I simply called the person up. I shot them an IM on chat and I said, hey, we have this product concept. People are telling me it's impossible, but I just want to dig into why. And basically, after talking to this guy who was in charge of that platform, he's a pretty low-level engineer. One moral of the story is everybody has the answers. You don't need to go all the way from the top or all the way to the bottom. You'd be amazed where you can dig through the answers talking to these types of people. After talking to them, I found out that this is totally doable. People were just afraid to reach out. So when I wanted to make this change, this really minor change to this really sensitive platform, basically the guy who knew what was going on told me it was totally okay. People were just afraid to ask because maybe they got their hands burned once or twice. So moral of the story is don't be afraid to ask how and why. As long as you're framing these challenges as you want to do what's best for the customer or you want to kind of understand or learn more, people will usually hear you out. And you can get past that first layer of fear or friction where people immediately say no because nobody wants to do more work.
Wow, that's awesome. Like, kudos to you on that. I'm glad to hear that worked out. And I think it's just so wonderful how and elegant, how simple it is. You just ask someone who actually knew what was going on. And they're like, oh yeah, that thing we can do.
Exactly. That's the challenge is a lot of people just don't want to reach out, and everyone says this, make those connections, work across the organization at these big firms. And yes, a lot of it, just to be frank, can be a little bit BS where you're just networking for the sake of networking. But, having a relationship with this guy is probably going to help me in the long run, not in a professional way, but I helped him deliver something. He helped me deliver something. We're friends now. And only because I wasn't afraid to call him. He's a low-level engineer on a particular project, and he had all the answers. And, it was that easy. And I got him to sign off, and then we just move on. So just not being afraid to pick up the phone, stop sending emails, stop setting up a meeting to have another meeting to talk about a meeting. Just pick up the phone and call someone. We're all human, and we're all trying to get work done and do cool things.
That's awesome. Thank you for that. And I think, talking about cool things here, it seems that you've had a journey that's just that's been something that really has put you in a place where you can continue to have success. And I think that where I love to explore is where how your journey started. You're sitting now in the major financial organization, and yet you're still doing what some might call product management and such. Can you talk to us about your transition and the first basically your journey? Take us to the beginning of it in terms of your career journey, and then help us understand how you got to where you are right now.
Sure thing. So I never knew what product management was. My mom worked a variety of jobs. My dad was a salesperson for a major appliance company. My sister wanted to be a doctor, so I didn't really know what was out there. But I just knew I needed to go to a good school and figure it out when I got there. In college, I originally thought I was either going to work at a bank or become an orthodontist for a variety of reasons. After taking all of those wonderful, fun, medical-based classes and learning more about finance, I decided that, I think financial services is really cool, and this is where I want to pivot to. So first pivot, figuring out what it was. Second pivot, narrowing down that I didn't want to be an orthodontist, and I wanted to go work at a bank because I thought it was cool. Unfortunately, graduating in 2010 was a little bit difficult in terms of recruiting. We're still rolling off of the financial crisis. So the jobs were pretty tight, and you had to be very clever in terms of what you were seeking out. But ultimately, a mutual friend of ours, actually, Nemo, keyed me up to a specific group within Citibank. It was called Global Transaction Services. And while that group sounds a little bit generic, big companies have a problem with that sometimes, and it's hard to be really specific on job postings. It sounded cool. I had somebody on the inside who, pushed me to apply for it. I applied. I ended up getting the job despite not knowing a lot of what it was. Just taking that risk based on a friend's opinion of, is this job cool? What does this person do? and just running with it. There were other jobs out there, other companies that I probably had better job listings versus this one, which was kind of generic. The moral of the story is that after I ended up at Citi, it was a really cool rotational program where I got to try a lot of different things. So every few months or years, they would move you around to a different group, and then you would try it. And no matter what, you knew that at the end, you could transition off or have the chance to stay. That ended up placing me in a product management role. I had no idea what that word meant. I had a really good boss who sort of taught me her way of product management. And then ever since I really sunk my teeth into it, being a huge nerd is really most of being a product manager. You can be a nerd about anything. You can be a nerd about art. You can be a nerd about cooking. You can be a nerd about technology. Just constantly wanting to dig into the why and the how is what I think makes a good product manager. So she really focused me in on doing that. I got to work at a bank like I wanted to, but I also got to, be the nerd that I always am. I was like, building computers, playing around with tech, doing things like that. I'm not a programmer by any sense of the word, but just kind of being able to marry all of those skills and taking a leap of faith because a person encouraged me to apply really set my whole career up. So I've had about 7 years in product management, which turns me into who I am today, where I'm managing some really cool digital products at Amex, American Express.
That's awesome. Whoa. So I'm listening to this here. I'm getting excited. So let's see here. Like, the question I want to ask you here is that we're talking about product management, and I don't want to take for granted like what that actually is. So maybe you can spend some time like describing to us like how, like what product management might be from like more of like a textbook external perspective, and then like your view or like how you approach it. I think the how and the why comes into play a lot, but maybe if you can make that a little bit more real for us or tangible for us through some type of example as to like maybe what a product manager does and how you maybe put this all into play.
That's a great question, Nemo, and I get that question every day. When there's other people that want to learn about product management or other people looking to make career changes, my current company, American Express, is a very networking and coffee chat style company. So junior people, senior people ask this question all the time, and no one has the real answer. So I can only give you my spiel, and it's really as follows. Product management totally varies in every single company and every single team. So a true textbook-based product management job consists of figuring out what the product's going to be. So what is the problem that you're trying to solve? You need to give a customer a new way to do something, or maybe there's a need that isn't answering current customers. Asking yourself, why am I doing this? What are the goals I'm trying to get done? Then figuring out the how and actually executing it. So we know that we need to build this. We think there's a need for this cool app that would allow customers to do X. Okay, great. I have the idea. But how do you break that down into solvable problems? How do you, knock over the Jenga tower that you just build in your mind and build it up piece from piece so it's actually something that works? You don't have to have an incredibly technical background. You don't necessarily need to have deep industry knowledge, and I can explain how I made the jump in between a couple of unrelated industries. You really just have to have the thought process to break down the how and the why. Product management interviews can often be very scary because you may get case questions, you get problems like build a product to solve X need on the fly. And most people aren't looking for you to come up with the coolest product. They're looking for a thought process. So to summarize, I think product management is grossly over summarized in that people think you're just, building things and launching things, but it really can change. Different teams have been on. A product manager is really only focused on creating a cool user experience and mocking up things in PowerPoint. Then you have a technical product manager or a TPM that does all of the really nitty-gritty, tech flows and figuring out what system plugs into why. Then I've also been on the flip side of that equation where I was defining the strategy, designing everything myself, laying out tech flows for platforms that I didn't really know what was happening, and then just kind of being in charge of everything end to end. So moral of the story, it means something different. The smaller the team and the smaller the product, the more likely you are to create a user experience, create the actual functioning product end to end, put a prototype together with chopsticks. With a bigger team, you're more of figuring out a widget or figuring out a very specific piece and how to optimize that for the wider platform that you might be working on from a digital perspective.
Oh, wow. Okay, great. So this is really helpful to see this here. And you had actually stated something. I love the image of like having a Jenga tower and being like, this is what we're building. and be like, all right, start and actually bring this thing together, knock it all over, and just like, okay, now how do we actually bring this together? And I think that's one of the things that you had mentioned as one of your strengths there, where it's like, all right, how do we take it from ideation and bring it into life? And I think what I'd love to kind of jump into is like the idea of you even getting into this role. You had mentioned that you had a couple of different career jumps there. And I think it would be incredibly useful for employees to get a clear picture as to like how you navigated your career and how you made the transitions along the way. So would you mind letting us know a little bit about your various jumps and the key steps that you took to be successful in them?
Sure thing. So when I first started, as I mentioned, I graduated from school and then I went to work for Citibank, or Citigroup more specifically. They have about 250,000 people at my time of employment there. So that's a large company. Everybody says they own something. Everybody has their little piece of the pie that they work on to make something that large successful. My little piece that I was working on was I was focusing on building a new digital experience for people who have corporate cards. So Citi issues credit cards, as many of you know. They have products based for Citi, particularly for corporate users. When you're employed by a company, they may give you a corporate card. And managing that digital experience, you have to expense things, you have to pay your bills, you have to get things approved, all of that. It's a different product than you just, swiping your card to try and get some Delta miles. There, I was tasked with figuring out what are the needs that a corporate card member has. I just had a corporate card. I didn't even have one for the first few months that I worked on that project. And what are the needs they have? When a corporate card member needs to log in or needs to do something on a monthly basis, how can we make that life easier? And while I didn't have a ton of experience, really what it taught me was just around asking lots of questions, find people who have experience and go out and just talk to them. Talk to people who have corporate cards. Talk to people who don't have corporate cards. Talk to consumers who use regular consumer credit cards and just figure out what those needs are and then propose tons of ideas. 9 out of every 10 ideas are pretty awful, but if you don't propose 10, you're not going to find that one that really works. So I had to create new features for that, which were pretty high level, given there were a lot of different experts on the team that had been there longer than I had. So that was a really fun experience. That allowed me to get my feet wet into kind of creating what a corporate card person needed to do online and make their lives easier and hopefully make their expenses not take 2 weeks to do. After that, I rotated off of that team at Citi into a very different group that managed and created a platform which allowed, private equity firms and mutual funds who have these very complex sets of data to visualize all of that on really just an iPad. So you can imagine if you're the CEO of a hedge fund, you have all of these stocks and bonds all over the world that have all this exposure and all this research you need to read. How do we bring all of that information that Citi provides to its customers to a user on an iPad in really a cool app they can play with to get the insights they need? So I was responsible for, one, learning all about these markets that I didn't have much experience in. But I did have a little bit of digital expertise of working with corporate card members and selling a product to a business. So you can see that I slowly build up these little Legos of expertise that may or may not be applicable to my next job, but that's pretty much what a resume is. It's a bunch of Legos describing what you can do. There, we built a product. It was pretty successful. It allowed hedge funds to play with things, spin a globe around, look at different products, look at different heat maps and things that could be useful to them. But ultimately, after spending a few years at Citi, I realized that I thought I was a product manager, but I really wanted to go work for a tech company. I really wanted to go, wear jeans, roll my sleeves up, have the super creative whiteboarding sessions that I thought product management was and that I thought all of these cool, sexy tech companies did. After interviewing around, I got a lot of feedback saying that, hey, you didn't do real product management. You did X. You did Y. You didn't own this particular piece. So what I realized was I needed to really build up my skill set. And unfortunately, just like any job, everybody wants experience, but few people are willing to give you the shot to take the experience. So rule number one, don't be afraid to apply to a lot of random jobs and roles that are a little bit off base. If there is a little bit glimmer of hope, try it, because you're statistically not likely to get the job anyways. There's still a lot of seed. But back to the point is that I needed to roll my sleeves up. I needed to kind of earn those product chops. So I left Citi, a big fancy bank, 250,000 people in New York, Manhattan, everything, to go work at a small hotel software company. I made that jump once again after a friend recommended it who had made that jump previously to go work at that firm. There, I got to learn all about the hotel industry. What B2B or business-to-business services does a hotel need to be able to sell you room? Most hotels need you to find the little calendar, pick the room you want, add some champagne for your honeymoon, and then check out. But it's actually a lot more complicated than that. And for those of you who may be aware, the travel industry is one of the most archaic, technically kind of debt-filled environments out there. You can't really just reinvent the wheel given all of the wonderful systems that run different airlines and everything today. But did that for about 2 years, built that platform, really focused on their mobile experiences. So I had B2B services. I had 2 different flavors there. In that third role, that hotel software role, I was able to really focus on mobile. And saying that I had worked on iPad apps previously enabled me to come and do this. Working there, I built up what I think is real product experience, owning everything end to end to end. I had to learn how to do things. I had to build things that I was totally unaware of and just teach yourself on the fly, because at a company that's less than 1,000 people, you are the SME, the subject matter expert. You just have to learn it and pick it up. After that, I decided that, big companies are great, small companies are great, but I want something in the middle. And I just needed a new subject. I kind of felt like I mastered what I'd been working on at that point in about 2 years, and I needed another change. I ended up moving to American Express, even though I said I would never go to working credit cards again. But the right team became available, a group called Digital Partnerships, which was really cool because I was able to not just build products, but I actually got to partner with people to work with them. So at Amex today, I work on different digital partnerships, things like how Amex can work with Airbnb to make travel better. How can Amex work with Apple to make payments via your phone or your watch better? Because I think we all agree that's the future of it. So that's where I am now. It's a really exciting time. I love my team. It's really fun. And I think we're actually getting real product skills because I'm able to own everything end to end with certain channels that I'm responsible for, but also keep learning because payments is really messy. Credit cards is still really big and crazy and changing. And I have the freedom to do a lot. But I still have the backing of working at a big firm. So that was a long answer, Nemo. Happy to dive into any piece of that as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is exactly the type of answer that we're looking for here. Like, I just really appreciate you just going in depth on your journey here. And what was coming up here, I think you talked about like the B2B, the mobile, and it was just very cool here how you were able to continue to leverage your skills from one place to the next here. From my standpoint here, I feel you're pretty thorough around like being able to like about like how your journey continued to build upon itself here. I really felt that there was a statement you said there around everyone wants experience, but not everyone is willing to give it. And that you just take what you can so you can go ahead and kind of bridge that experience there. So Alaric, let me ask you this here. If there was one thing that you would say to like summarize your experience for anyone that's like looking to get into this, and what would it be?
So one thing to summarize my experience of how I became a product manager, or one thing I would tell myself on how to, get experience, so I know what you're asking me about.
Ooh, both of them would be really great. And just the way that you've been answering questions, I think it would be fair to put on both. So the first one there, I'm going to write it down. First one here is about like experience around the product management. And then the other one is like how to get experience.
Sure. So the first thing is a product manager, I think, really needs 2 skills in a current product world where everything's moving faster, everything's more digital, and we don't necessarily have to wait 10 months to do anything at a lot of major companies anymore. I think a product manager really needs to do 2 things. One, they need to be an effective communicator. You're telling other people the way something needs to be, or at least arguing why it might need to be that way in your opinion. So you need to be very good at communicating. And I have one rule. If you can't teach, well, I have many rules, but if you can't teach somebody about what you're talking about, you don't understand it. So if you can't sit down and whiteboard or draw or talk in length with whatever you're doing, you don't know enough about it to be an expert in that area. So I love talking to people. I love telling folks about payments and how fun the intricacies are. I know it's not that exciting for many people. They just want to buy things and get their miles. But you have to be able to explain things in a clear and concise way. The second thing that you need to do is you need to be able to prioritize. I mentioned before that everybody needs to come back and think about the how and the why. And if there was unlimited money and unlimited time and everybody agreed with you, everybody would save the world and we'd all be billionaires, owning our own successful companies now. But in my opinion, prioritization is just as important as communication, because if you communicate it clearly, the next thing you need to do is figure out what you're going to do and in what order. It's not about delivering this whole wonderful product. You can't save the world on day one. What are the little pieces you can take? As we mentioned, rebuild that Jenga tower, but this time make it out of Lego so things stick. What is the minimum thing you can do right now to take a step forward? And how can you continually take a step forward? Because there's all those cheesy quotes about, a marathon starts with a single step, but it's pretty true. You're going to build something out of a skeleton. You're going to figure out a little problem that uncovers another problem. So being able to effectively communicate that and being able to prioritize the work to make that happen in a way that's, cost and time effective is what I think makes a really good product manager. So that's sort of the product management piece. As we talk about summing up my career and kind of putting your personal Legos together, I think the best thing you can do is find a problem and solve it. So I focused on one really small piece first. I focused on, a corporate card management webpage. That isn't going to reinvent the world. That isn't the coolest, sexiest product out there. But it's a little need that I was able to get really focused on and really kind of hone that skill. So when I'm in an interview, I can talk about it. I might know nothing about the next product I'm going to work on. Let's say I have to work on, fashion, retail, online. I don't know anything about fashion. I'm not the most fashionable guy, to be blunt. But as it relates to getting something done, I know how to break a problem down. And the more times you can practice on breaking a problem down, thinking about it methodically and executing it through whatever process you want to do, that will enable you to talk to the person interviewing you and proving you that you might not have the expertise in the background in fashion, but you have the skills and diverse experience in your own way to apply it. So summing that up a little bit more concisely, find something you can talk about. Find a problem that you solved that you can make really exciting and explain to others how there was this big problem, how you were responsible for fixing it. It doesn't have to be, earth-shattering, but it has to enable to prove to someone on the other side of the fence that your manager or your boss didn't tell you to go solve it. You figured it out. You took charge. You solved it no matter how big or small, and how the steps you took to solve that problem. So my life is just an endless series of solving these types of problems that people say we can't solve. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So just continuing that process and continuing that journey, figure it out, start over, figure it out, start over, and just churning yourself through that. I think it is a lot of what my career has been, just bigger problems after bigger problems.
Alaric, I cannot thank you enough. I think you're just giving us the fuel here to really take on bigger and bigger problems, and then to be able to demonstrate how to continue to the impact that we've been able to make, and then to go on and solve more and more from there. I think there's something that I would like to move on to a roadblock in your journey, but before I do that, I think there's something that I really like to bring up here, which is that you're working in tech for a really large financial company that people know about. It's not like a startup that's coming up with a new brand new technology or disruptive idea or something like that in its own kind of isolated aspect. You've been able to navigate your career in such a way that you've been able to do it in more of a corporate setting, and there are probably some employees out there, I know it, that are in the corporate world and would love to stay in the corporate world, but also want to get that kind of tech feel or be working in maybe a faster paced environment or working on product management and things like that. So if you had to speak directly to them for just 2 minutes here, is there any thoughts you would say or anything you would recommend to those people who are looking to find technology in a more traditional setting?
Sure. Before I answer that, I just want to say that you don't have to know much about technology to work in technology. You just have to think about things a different way. You have to think about the how and the why, and you have to be curious, and you have to be able to plug these different things in. You don't have to be a programmer. You don't need to go out and take HTML classes and understand what JavaScript is and know what APIs mean. You don't need that type of technical experience. You just need to have the will to go figure it out. As a product manager who has other product managers work with and for me sometimes, it really is about thinking about the problem. You can go learn tech limitations, just like you can go learn enough of the language to be strong at it. You just need to be curious enough and have the drive to go figure it out and be self-sufficient. So the saying in terms of skills you don't need to be a technologist to work in technology or even on technology products. Plenty of people go from marketing to these tech jobs at big companies and vice versa. But to answer your question about navigating these organizations and kind of getting involved in tech at big organizations, the first thing I can say is to try and focus on new products. New products, the future versus the old, tend to have smaller teams. They also tend to have more flexibility. If you're creating something new, and product is a very general word, feature, enhancement, design, whatever your niche is, every company has these small teams popping up to try and reinvent the future. Find those teams and get involved. Be curious, try to get things done, prove how much you've done at your current firm, and try to get them to take the leap of faith and trusting you when you bring your own experience. So I personally enjoy working at a small tech-focused team at a large company because I like the safety and security of, not that startup life where it's 5 guys in a garage and you might not have a job tomorrow. But I think that would probably be my biggest bit of advice, of find those small teams that are working on something that isn't totally defined yet. So you can come in, you can have an opinion, and you can try to contribute. They're looking for bodies. It might be more open-ended, but that would be my recommendation. It doesn't have to be technology related. It doesn't have to be coding. It doesn't have to be anything that specific. Just solving a new need that they haven't figured out yet. That's contrary to some people where they want to focus where the money is. They want to be in the flashy group. They want to focus on what job might pay them the most or what is, the most core to the business. I personally think there's merit in that, and you might need to work in that group, to use American Express as an example, work on one of the credit cards. I'm going to work on the awesomely mythic black card. That's cool. That's great. But how much impact am I going to have there? Find a team that needs impact, find a team that isn't defined yet, and create an impact and try to be successful. That would be my recommendation of working at a big company and finding those small tech bubbles that might not seem like technology, but allow you to have creativity, flexibility, and impact.
Okay. Thank you for that there. So as we've been talking, it's clear that even just from the way that you present your answer here, that you've been successful and your journey has taken all these different turns along the way, but it hasn't been a completely linear, straight journey to success. And I think what I mean by that is that I'm sure that you've experienced some setbacks, some roadblocks, and some failures along the way. So would you mind taking us to one of your greatest career challenges and the steps that you took to overcome that?
Sure. And at the risk of being generic, this is a challenge I face every time I think I'm ready for a change. So I'll go back to my past where I wanted to leave Citibank and I wanted to go work at a cool, trendy tech company. Making that jump from a big corporate environment where I think I had skills and I feel like I had a strong resume to go, shop around and talk to, the Googles, the Amazons, the Facebooks, those cool companies. While it's good to feel confident, you really need to gut check yourself sometimes and realize what skills can you actually bring to the table. How is your story and how would you hire yourself? Asking yourself that question is often, a little bit of an ego breaker, but to kind of get back to the point is that when I was leaving Citibank, I was looking everywhere. I just wanted a small, cool company, everything from the smallest of the small, 50 guys in a random loft to big companies like Amazon and, Google more established. And it took me a long time to find the right job. I interviewed a lot of them didn't work out, and that's just the market we're in today. So you're going to need to sow a lot of seeds. You're going to try and really make your connections, but I kept looking and looking and looking for a long time. And I felt really down. I felt like I was kind of a failure, like I was going to be stuck working on these very specific bank apps that only a few people are going to use. They were cool and I learned a lot, but I was afraid I couldn't break out. And I think, just an aside, Nemo, I think that's one thing that's really great about what you're doing with this is you're trying to give people, 1, confidence, and 2, information to help them make that jump, to stick through that journey. And I can tell you, and I can tell everyone listening to this, that it just takes a lot of grit, and you have to keep sowing a lot of seeds, and you have to keep looking because those jobs are out there. And you will continue to interview, you will continue to refine your story, and you will find someone that will take a leap of faith. If not, you can go start your own thing, but that's not necessarily where everybody wants to go. So to kind of summarize the roadblock is, when I'm ready to make these changes, specifically that one where I went from a very large company to a very small company, it was very hard. It was frankly a slap in the face of what I thought I was good at, but you have to ego check yourself. You have to realize that in the beginning of your career, you're really just building your resume, building your story, and building your skills you can talk about for that next job. You might stay at a company your whole life, and that's cool. But in summary, really just sowing a lot of seeds, taught me that, I'm not perfect. No company's perfect. After working on hiring people, the process is just a little bit too quick. Your message doesn't always get through, and your story doesn't always get through. So you need to send your story to a lot of people, and you need to really try to expand your mind in terms of what's out there, what you're interested in, and really what would you do and what are you looking for, because eventually that job will open up. You just need to be ready for it.
I think that's like that aspect of like just how real that process is. I mean, you said it took a long time, and it's not easy to admit that it was like a slap in the face, or like that it didn't feel great throughout that process. But I appreciate you bringing that out there and putting it out there and giving us something that we can hold on to as we're looking to make these transitions. It's not going to be, the very next day is not necessarily promised that you'll get a job working in tech there, but sticking through it. And I was hearing you saying, expanding your mind as to what you think, you are good at and what you think like your next role really needs to look like. And I also heard a bit about crafting and refining your story along the way. So almost like it's in a sense, it almost feels like you treated that process as a new product, and yourself as a new product. And you're like, all right, what are your needs? How do I feel it? How do I go on from there? Am I capturing that right? I don't want to be putting words in your mouth. That's wrong.
No, I think that's a very accurate thing. You are your own product. You are selling yourself. And you might think you're great, hey, I'm this cool new 8-track tape. Everybody buy me. No, that's not going anywhere. Nobody wants 8-tracks anymore unless you're really cool and vintage. So my point is that, yes, you're your own product, and you have to be able to manage yourself as your own company. You have to have the skills. You have to work. You have to be presented well. You have to sell yourself in these interviews. You have to be nimble enough to pivot. Maybe you get 10 people in a row telling you, hey, you have no idea what product management is. You do not belong in technology. That means two things. One, they're wrong, or two, they're right to a degree. So you have to take that feedback, because perception is everything. And that's why I always come back to, it's not what you've done, it's how you can talk about what you've done, because nobody's going to understand the needs of your previous role. Nobody knows what, a mutual fund needs on an iPad app. But I was responsible for that, and that's cool. But how did I take a need, think about it creatively, and kind of break through boundaries here and there to make something happen? And I tell everybody I work with this, find a way to get more work done faster. And this isn't an automation thing. It's just find a way to accelerate things. Find a way to make decisions faster and better. Find a way to create something that nothing takes a year. Find a way to do it in 2 months, and find a way to improve yourself that quickly. You don't need to take 2-year-long certification classes to become a certified product manager. There's all these certifications out there. I don't believe in those personally. While they can offer value to a lot of people, and some firms may require them, just like some firms require an MBA, you're really your own product. Build something that you want to sell and that people want to buy, and it doesn't have to be totally relevant. Being a little bit out in left field, I think it's color, and don't be afraid to, be yourself at the right time.
So let's talk about this here. You've been giving us a whole bunch of really great insight here, and you're talking about being yourself. And I think that at least to me, being myself, when I'm able to accomplish that, brings me a great sense of joy here. And I love to talk about something that has brought you some great joy along your professional career. Would you mind taking us to your proudest professional moment and sharing a little bit with us about the steps that led to your success?
Sure. So as I mentioned, I work at American Express today, and I work on some of our different digital products. So the different ways you're going to buy stuff online is what I think about every day, in and out. Online, in store, on your phone, with your watch, with your voice or your face or whatever is the next cool thing. So that can get pretty granular sometimes, but it's really fun in that I'm working on something very tangible. So one thing that I personally look for in every job is tangible kind of feedback. It's great when you can work on these big lofty projects, but if you can't actually log into it yourself or see it on your phone or show it to somebody, I find that harder to connect with personally. So when I work on something that's tangible and it launches and we do a whole bunch of press about it, that's really exciting. But two of my most proud moments on the products I've been working on were I work on a product called Amex Express Checkout, which is Amex's take at making your life easier online by allowing you to buy things in a safer, more seamless, and more in a quicker way online, which basically results in you leveraging what you already know. You log in with your Amex credentials, and Amex figures it all out for you. So I won't go into the details of that. I won't pitch it on this chat, but the gist of it is it's really cool and it's really exciting, and I really like working on it. And after we launched, got two pieces of recognition that were a little bit unique. One, at Amex, there was a president, a very senior executive named Ed Gilligan, who was a really influential guy and really founded the whole digital movement at American Express. And there was an award that was named in his honor that I was lucky enough to receive via my work on Amex Express Checkout. And you get a little plaque and things that you get at corporate companies. But what really meant is that I was kind of living on through his spirit, somebody who really kind of succeeded at breaking through and being innovative. I got an award kind of in his honor, and he unfortunately passed away, and that's why the award is named after him, of being able to just break through and get really cool work done. That's sort of one of my personal achievements. The second one, which is a little bit more fun and a little bit more lighthearted, is I'm a huge points junkie. I read all of the articles, Flyer Talk, Million Mile Secrets, The Points Guy, and my product was actually featured on The Points Guy 2 or 3 times for various reasons. So I love points. I'm constantly finding ways to stockpile them and find really cool redemptions, take free trips, all of that. And my product was on one of my favorite websites. So the Points Guy has nothing to do with technology. I'm focused on tech all day, but just seeing my own thing there on something I was consuming every day was just really rewarding. And it's those little wins that I think, it's not a bonus, it's not a raise, it's not a promotion. Those things are cool, and following the money will only get you so far. It's those little things from time to time where, you're on your favorite website. Like, I thought that was really cool. And that was just really inspiring to keep going and moving forward to doing what I'm doing. And it validated the path I'm on for my personal journey.
Oh, I love that so much. It's like this idea of just like going onto your favorite website and getting that, like, seeing that like little shout out, that little recognition that like, hey, look, that's a bit of me right there, and having that come in and Alaric, I see the way that you are. I could see that continuing to happen both with the products that you have out there as well as your own personal persona and the teams that you the teams and the people that you continue to help make successful and make their lives a little bit easier here. I also want to just say congratulations on that recognition there. I think that it's not like not just on the actual receiving of the award, but I think it's something really special that you also have taken to heart what the award actually means, what that recognition actually means. I think it's a lot easy. I think it's pretty easy to get, an XYZ name award goes to, and just kind of think, okay, I have this plaque and now it's like, it's on my wall or it's in my desk drawer or wherever it is. And I think exactly. I think more than anything else there for you to be able to say like, yes, I embody what the spirit, the character, the drive, what this person was going forth and using that to continue to move you forward. I think that's really something special. And I just want to thank you for sharing that with us here. So Alaric, we're going to bring this conversation over to a close here. And what I want to do, we've talked about your past here and your journey up until this moment. I'd love to just take a look from where we are now and just get an idea as to like, all right, what's going on in the life of Alaric? What is something that like really excites you about your professional journey right now? Sure.
So as I mentioned, I work in digital payments, and payments sounds weird and boring, but the cool part is the digital part. What that means and where things are going, I think we all know that the way you buy things are very different today. Back in the day, you would mail a check somewhere to a catalog, and then you might get it in the mail, or you might have to pick it up at a store. And now, Amazon has drones delivering stuff to your doorstep. You never even knew you bought it, and it's there in an hour. So the whole concept of buying things, America loves buying things, everybody loves buying things to a degree, is changing. And the interactions of how the payment works around there sounds very nuanced and boring, but it's actually really exciting because everybody's trying to get a piece of the pie. So, when you think about a credit card, you walk into a store, you swipe, or you put the chip in and you wait for a while. Then you have things where you are tapping your phone. Your credit card isn't even in your hand, or your wallet's not even near you. Then you have, the Uber example where you forget how you paid. You just book the car and it happens. So the fun part about my job and the fun trends I see coming are the massive competition everywhere. Everybody wants a piece of your mind. Everybody wants a piece of your pie. Apple wants your phone. Google wants your browsing. Uber wants your ride. Amazon just wants everything about you. So the fun part is that I'm not just thinking about payments. I'm thinking about how to make people's lives better. I'm thinking about how to kind of make your whole digital journey more fulfilling and more rewarding. hopefully you can get more points or something like that for using these services one day. But that's what I find most exciting, is that it's constantly changing. I've worked in slow environments. I've worked in way too fast environments. And that constant competition, I'm a pretty competitive guy, is what gets me up every day. There could be a news article tomorrow saying, PayPal is doing something cool. And that's exciting. It's a little scary knowing that every 6 months your whole mantra can change. But I think our generation of people and, the future of good product managers aren't those people who will sit there and have 5 years to solve a problem. You just have to see what's out there, go figure it out. And every day is a new day. Every day something's going to change. Every day somebody's going to release what you thought was really cool. I know we all have that wonderful kind of remorse when you come up with a really cool idea and you think it's going to be $1 billion startup. And then the next day you see it in the news because you didn't have to act fast enough. I find that really exciting because eventually, hopefully, all of our ideas stick. We might not be billionaires one day, but that constant creativity and that constant attack from all angles on something as simple as how you pay for something is a really fulfilling experience. And it means that every day is different for me. And I get to continue to play with my Jenga blocks and continue to play with my Legos. And that's what I like doing. I like to build things. I like to break them down. And as long as I can keep doing that on a good team with good people, then I'm happy.
I'm not going to lie. I right now want to go out and just if it doesn't exist already, just like Jenga out of Legos, because it makes so much sense here. And I think there was something really beautiful about what you said. Like a lot of times we'll talk about this kind of stuff and it's like, oh, I like working in a fast paced environment, or I needed something that was a faster pace in there. And I think you're actually kind of uncovering another aspect of what the fast pace is, right? Is it just the fact that everything needs to be done right now? Or is it the fact that hey, because the fast pace is a symptom of the fact that this is a consistently and constantly changing environment. And you're in a place where you can make an impact by just getting out there, and I appreciate that because that's just a new look at something that I think a lot of people kind of toss out. And I feel like this different view is something really meaningful. So, Alaric,
totally agree,
Yes. We're at our time here. I want to just, I've been able to ask you a number of different questions. I wanted to leave something open for you in case you had any questions for me. So let me just ask you don't have to have a question, but you've been really great at answering all of mine. So I wanted to open that up for you in case you did.
Sure. One thing is my question is actually a question for you to ask me another question. These have been great. It's been great talking to you today, Nemo, but what is really, the one big ask that, people coming to you through this platform or in your journey of trying to help people that they've really been in need of? What is the question that they can't solve? What is the nut they can't crack? I know that's a complex question, but
no.
I'm happy to help those people. And as I've said throughout my whole journey here with you today, that, mentorship and finding those connections are unfortunately a major requirement for how you get ahead these days. So what is the biggest question that people look to you to help them answer through this wonderful thing that you're creating?
I really, really appreciate you putting it out there, Alaric, and I am going to have an ask of you through this year. I think my answer to this is that the question that I do get may not be the question that I should get, right? I think at the end of the day, the ask, that the biggest nut to crack is how do we take people's past experiences and the skill sets that they either have or are developing and help them build the experiences or demonstrate the experience necessary to get the job, right? So I see, the way that the framework that has come up from working with people from multiple careers and talking to people around getting into tech, getting into, previously I was involved with actuarial work. It always comes down to three things. One, are they aware of the opportunities that are out there? This podcast hopefully is taking care of some of that so that people understand what the opportunities are and how other people have done it. Two, do they have the skill sets to be able to, the skills necessary for that type of role? And three, do they have the experiences or can they talk about and demonstrate those experiences in order to actually land the role? So the question and I think I already asked this one here, but I think if the question I would ask for you, is around is around being able to create those types of experiences. And you've been able to share your experiences here with us here. Would you be interested in like continuing to help us build people up and build those experiences by being a part of the Empjoyment community here? We're building a community that is bringing people together with past guests from the show, and just getting people who have questions and providing different opportunities and workshops for them to really just build the skills and build tangible experience, like real life experience on different things.
I'd love to, Nemo. I know that I wouldn't be where I am today without some of the people that reached out and helped. You know, they don't need to be executives. Sometimes you just need somebody to bounce ideas off of. And that's really my bit of advice. If I had to give everyone parting advice, is if I had two, sorry, I always have lists. I can't just say. Two is, one is finding mentors and finding people. I know everyone says that, but you don't need a formal mentorship. You don't need any of that. You just need somebody to talk to and somebody to nudge you one way or the other to bounce ideas off of. And eventually that door will open. Somebody knows you who knows somebody, or says you should apply for a job that maybe you scrolled past on your LinkedIn. And the second piece is about just giving people that opportunity to play around, to create that experience. You know, sometimes it's a workshop, sometimes it's a panel, sometimes it's just write a blog. It's just about anything, and at least from a product management perspective, you just have to do it. And the good news, since I covered a lot of what we talked about today around, just doing it, I'm happy to help those people with the idea, or those people that maybe not know what they can do, figure that out. So I'm happy to help people.
Thank you very much, Alaric. Yeah, I think that would be absolutely fantastic. Like what you'll find with Empjoyment is that like we'll talk about it here on the podcast, but like my end goal is to help people build a portfolio, build resume, building activities and projects and opportunities that they can then talk about when they're looking for roles or when they're putting onto their resume. So, to this kind of extent, if there's anything that comes to mind, or if there's any kind of way that you think people can start building that experience, I would love any thoughts. You don't have to give it to me right now, but it'd be really great to continue to explore this in the community and find ways to get people to take that action.
Yeah, I'm happy to help, Demo, and I actually do have an answer and a very short example. I know we're way over time.
No,
but
I'm good.
A buddy of mine who's pretty junior, and he started working in compliance at a financial institution company, and nothing wrong with compliance, don't get me wrong, but it just wasn't what he wanted to do. And he wanted to become a product manager, and he's kind of fresh out of school, a little bit wet behind the ears, and he kept getting the answer of, no, I can't become a product manager. I'm not good enough. I don't have the skills. I'm too junior, blah, blah, blah. So what he did is he went out and created his own product. And no, it's not a $1 billion startup. He's not the next Elon Musk or the guy that runs Uber. He just created an app, and he doesn't know how to code. He's not an engineer. He's like a finance nerd, and he created an app. It's one of those social media apps where you can, meet other people in your area and, hang out for pickup basketball. That has nothing to do with the products he wants to work on, but it just gave him a story. It's a small thing. I don't know how many users it has. It's called Sponte, plug, SPONTE with the symbol over it. But he created it, and he launched it, and it could be successful, it could not be, but it gave him something to talk about, and it gave him something he could talk about in his interviews. Create something, make a new recipe, build something in your house, do anything. Just create a story, because nobody's going to create that for you, and I'm happy to help others, create that story and work with them to, help them brainstorm and potentially put their Legos together.
Ooh, I think that might be our next workshop then, creating that story and building your Jenga model out of Legos here. But I think that's really great. And Empjoyee, just so you know, like when this comes out there, this is not a session for Alaric to just tell you things. He's already told you what needs to get done. This is a time for you to roll up your sleeves, come up here, and start crafting your story in real time. So Alaric, let's go ahead. We'll take this offline and try and figure out a little bit more about this. Empjoyees, what I would say here is that, please send us a message, send me a message at nemo@empjoyment.com. Join the Empjoyment community, because that's where we're going to be talking to people who have signed up and said, I'm ready to do work. I'm ready to be surrounded by others. I'm ready to help others be successful. They're going to be shaping these types of workshops, these types of experiences that are really here to help you move forward. So if you want to help shape the direction of where we're going with this, come be a part of this year. I know Alaric and I are going to be making some great things happen at least creating a space for you to make some great things happen, because we're in a place that we feel pretty good, I would say. So now we want to make it easier for you. So you've given us two parting pieces of advice. You've given us like an entire treasure trove worth of just amazing information, just places to go. So Alaric, I want to just thank you so very much for just being so candid, so open, so authentic with this entire thing. I also know that you prepared a lot here, so you can bring your best self to all the employees that are listening to this here. And for that, I also want to thank you because it really came through. And I feel that this conversation is just completely packed with actionable and meaningful steps that people can take to move forward, even just one step today. So with that here, I want to just say thank you for spreading joy today. And I wish you the best going forward. Take care, Alaric.
Thank you, Nemo.
So what did I tell you? Did this episode deliver or what? And when I say this episode, it's as if like the episode itself had something. Did Alaric deliver or not? And, I think this is definitely an episode you're probably going to want to go back and listen to more. We're going to put in as much information as we can onto the show notes that are over on empjoyment.com/podcast. You can find this one at empjoyment.com/Alaric. But in addition to that there, even if you never make it over to the site for that in particular, I think you should make it over in order to take on today's Empjoyment challenge, the Empjoyment action. And that one there is really around the aspect of finding a problem and solving it. So Alaric brought that up and he said, like, that's the way to gain experience. And to be honest and frank, that's what we focus here at Empjoyment on. How are we going to help you get experience so that you can feel comfortable and feel confident that your resume and your interviewing stories speak to the opportunities and impact that you've made, that they've actually demonstrate that. So what I would like for each of you that are listening here is to go onto our Empjoyment community, which you can join by going to empjoyment.com/community or type in the word Empjoyment to 33444. I would like you to come be a part of the community and answer this question. What problem have you seen in your life that you can go ahead and fix? And then how will you go about solving it? Now, let's not make this over too complicated here. It doesn't need to be ridding the world of infectious diseases. Let's make it concrete. Let's make it real. And let's think about where you want to go in your career. So if you're interested in whatever line of tech work you're interested in, think about a problem that relates to that. Think about one thing that you can do to solve it, and then come share it with us in the Empjoyment community. And what we'll do is we'll be able to go back and forth. We'll be able to, maybe you'll find some others who are also interested in solving a similar problem. And you can take this on, as Alaric said, just do it. Don't wait for it. Just go ahead and do it. Think about it. Work is just someone who came up with an idea and said, I'll pay you to make this happen. Right? But it's still the same thing. You could do the work even without the payment. So get out there and do it. Let's build that experience and come join the Empjoyment community and come have that opportunity to build more experience. All right. So with that here, I just left this conversation with Alaric. I'm still feeling pumped. So I'm going to go off and make some great things happen for me and for you all here. It is with great joy that I say to you, have a wonderful day. Take care, y'all.